Yo, yo, yo. Yo, 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 what's up, guys? Welcome to another video, man. Welcome, 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 welcome. I'm gonna be like, research and tell me top down the best based on the most recent news about projects. Okay, so it seems like Astar is crossing the breakout line, so I'm going to refresh my page a little bit. I want to push for 50 so I'm going to trade this back. I'm going to sub this. Sorry. I'm going to sub this to. Seems like we lost a little bit. It's fine. Alright, so. Okay, so I'm going to sub this back to Sol. Okay. Consider all projects released recently and do a top down in terms of best to worst, realistically speaking, research and do it. Alright. So alright. Okay, so phase 1.5 collective governance, brutal. Astar is a real tech in Polkadot's orbit, survivable but unlikely to be the next Macareno unless Polkadot OP ecosystem surge. See if there's any correspondence here. Astar, Remitix, B. Yeah, exactly. Not really. I'm not believing that. Layer bread? Hell no. Fuck no. I'm not buying bread. No. Polkadot reacts to biggest tokenomics overhaul. $4. Alright, so OG sniped. I think I might be able to make a play here. So Bless is a pretty good coin. So it's pretty much spitting the same bullshit again. Fuck. Consider S2. rank them top down in terms of real growth. Alright, so we're gonna go based off whatever it says this at this point. Solana, yeah, I mean that's facts. Solana staking, yeah. I'm gonna keep it in OG. So I'm just gonna keep my $50 in OG. Aster is just trading at $2. So that's not bad, but there's a lot of selling pressure here. OG seems to be doing pretty well. It's a lot of pressure. Sorry, what the fuck was that? OG USDT. Okay, so we'll swap about $20 for this, or maybe 50. $30. Let's do 20% of my portfolio, so that's 250 divided by, so that's 25 times 2, that's $50. So let me swap spot. Where is it? All right. $50 worth of Sol to OG. All right. But according to issued decision by a seer, but mainnet just went live, backed by serious players targeting the AI compute narrative, a hot sector with real demand. So far, yeah, exactly. Explosive growth, exchange listings. So let's do a yes. So Aster seems like it's breaking through the previous high, which is pretty good. I'm not going off news. That's the last thing I will do. 80% obviously, 60%, 50% execution risk. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. Fuck it. We'll just gamble with this one. I'm not going anything below this. Yeah, I'll just go with OGAI. I have put some in Aster in a different account, so that's pretty good. Exactly. So I have about $50 worth of OG. $50, man. 50. Let's say is OG. What's this? No. 0 G, my bad. 0 G. What is the
CEO of ZeroG.ai. We're the fastest modular AI chain. And what that means essentially is that we put AI models onto a blockchain so that they can be run in a fully decentralized context. So I've been following the space probably since 2013. I was at Stanford actually around that time, and Bitcoin was very well discussed amongst my classmates and professors. So I spent some time with like Tim Draper, for example. Mark Andreessen talked about it too. I was actually in an auditorium at that point listening to him, and I was like, okay, I should really check this out. And so invested into Bitcoin through Coinbase, and then did the whole like ICO boom as an investor in 2016, 17, and then kept investing in the space. I started out as an engineer and technical product manager. So I worked at Microsoft and SAP Labs. I worked after that at Bain & Company and Bridgewater Associates before coming back to Stanford and then starting a Web2 startup company that I scaled to about 650 people, 100 million in contracted AR. I raised basically tried to use my management consulting skill set and like build an analysis of the market. And then 3 months later, I realized like I did a great analysis, but I had zero product to show for it. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should go back and utilize more my engineering and like product management mindset. And at that point, I also realized that I have some knowledge gaps. So that's when I actually said, okay, I should go back to Stanford and enroll in some interesting courses that actually helped me become a better entrepreneur. And I think the breakthrough that I had was in Steve Blank's Launch that class. Yeah, so that was phenomenal for me because it was all about get outside of the building, talk to potential customers, utilize like this business model canvas, and then figure out what your value proposition is, i.e. your product market fit, and then be very systematic, like step by step. And then when you talk to 100 people in the space, then you essentially know the industry and you have a good business model. Actually, fun story, the person that connected me to the other two co-founders, Thomas, he was actually my classmate at Stanford. And so, you never know when you take a class with somebody, they end up becoming a co-founder. So this was 2022, he called me and basically said, 5 years ago, I invested in Conflux, and Ming and Fan are two of the co-founders, and I want to start something more global scale. And he asked me, like, would I be interested in chatting? I know you've been investing in Web3, I know you wanted to do something in the space. And so I said, like, yeah, let's explore. And then 6 months of co-founder dating later, we basically, I was like, wow, these are the best engineers and career scientists that I've ever worked with. Like, we need to start something. And we've got people from MIT, CMU, Stanford. The way we thought about it initially was we wanted to have at least 2 years of runway, and we wanted to have enough funds to actually build the basic infrastructure. And so that's how we derived the 5 million. And then essentially what happened is I spoke to some friendly investors, and they were super excited about what we're building. They're like, hey, we're happy to give you a term sheet. And then I started getting a lot of introductions to other investors. And I think the first term sheet came from HackVC after a few conversations with them and pretty deep technical diligence. Once that happened, then a lot of other investors started hearing about it, and they were all like, oh, we have to invest. We have to. This is like the next thing. We got pretty quickly like 5x, 10x oversubscribed, and eventually like 20x as we kind of continued the fundraise. And what I had to do is I had to essentially tranche the different pricing tiers. So we went through at that time the Stanford Blockchain Accelerator, and so we got a lot of introductions through that team. So Kun and Bill and Steven are part of it. So if you're interested in Web3, definitely check that out. And then from my personal network as well. So those were the 2 key sources. I think one of the key things as well is to think about like who are absolutely the key investors that I want as part of this round. And then especially in Web3, do I do a round where there's like one major lead investor, or do I do more of a distributed cap table? So that's another challenge to kind of think through. For us, we wanted a distributed cap table because the ethos of Web3 is very much around a decentralized community building sphere. So your investors are actually part of that community. And then when you have them in your community, they invite you to events and you get to speak there. They help with kind of follow-on financing. They help with introducing new projects that can utilize your infrastructure. And so we very much went for more of a distributed cap table approach. As we built the presentation and got some feedback from initial investors, I also modified some of the story because I was like, oh, this doesn't sound quite as convincing. At this point, doesn't make quite as much sense. And then created a very compelling story over kind of the first month, I would say.
Did you have any
centralized community building, failed pitch stories? Sphere. So your investor, hard to say what failed is exactly, but sometimes going through an entire pitch only to figure out that the investor is like a later stage investor or doesn't invest in your sector. So I'd say that's kind of a funny, awkward moment at the end. So what I usually do in the beginning is just ask like, okay, what type of check amounts do you invest in? At what stage do you invest in? How valuation sensitive are you? Just to kind of understand where that investor's head is at to avoid situations like that. Because I've definitely been in presentations like that. For Web3 specifically, it's really, as I mentioned, just want to harp on this point because it's very true. It's still very much an infrastructure-heavy space. There are a number of applications that are being built, but they're not quite the same as like in a centralized space. And so a lot of the things that still get funded in the space are infrastructure-heavy because there's still a ton of problems around, like for example, there's this proliferation of layer 2s right now. But because of that, if you have like 100, if not 1,000 layer 2s, there's also liquidity fragmentation. So the user experience is not great. So you have to like go through a bridge, transfer your assets, and then if you want to interact with a specific application, then you need a specific token for maybe gas, and then you have to switch a lot of things. And so it's like a very cumbersome user experience. And so there's a lot of infrastructure that's being built to address that, but it's still not at a space and time where it's like super smooth, super easy to use, just like in a centralized context. But definitely encourage other builders to check out the combination of decentralized AI or Web3 meets AI, because there's a lot that we can do to keep AI models and AI agents in the future from being dishonest and not aligned with human interests. And so that's why we believe so strongly in this idea of AI being a public good. And so definitely encourage a lot of developers to look at that intersection to make sure that we don't have a handful of companies basically controlling most of our economy when AI agents start taking over.
Not bad. Not bad.
developers are actually part of that community. And then when you have them in your community, they invite you to events and you get to speak there. They help with kind of follow-on financing. They help.
Yeah, the only proven player? Yeah, that's facts. Truth, mainnet is live, AI compute is real demand, computing, yeah. Execution's everything, yeah. This is promising. This is holy shit, this is promising. A layer 1 blockchain with decentralized computing marketplace, decentralized storage, and rapid availability. That's crazy. Critical infrastructure that is redefining what's possible for AI. Right. 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 Okay, that's fire. That's fire. Plus liquidity, plus PR execution, but heavy. Okay, you know what? I'm confident in my take. Polkadot survivals, what do you want breakout? Their chances of Polkadot surging. Interesting.